Do you remember the story of Medusa we did a while back? Once a beautiful maiden, but eventually cursed by the goddess Athena, she was transformed into a monstrous Gorgon with snakes for hair, and anyone who gazed upon her turned to stone. Well, whether or not you believe she deserved to become a monster, she was dangerous, and if you know the tale, you know that she met her end when the hero Perseus beheaded her, all while using a mirrored shield to avoid her gaze from turning him to stone. In this video, we are going to dive into the story of how oppression brought Perseus to that moment, and how Greek legends, using his story as an example, continue to reflect themes of battling oppression and built-in power dynamics in real life over time. Our story begins with Perseus' mother, Danae, a princess of Argos. Danae was a descendant of Lo, an Argive maiden who was forced to wander all the way from Egypt in the guise of a cow, and built quite the large family tree below her. Danae had tons of cousins, so when her father found out via prophecy that her son would be the one to overthrow him one day, he was pissed, and she was terrified. As the story goes, her own father, King Acrisios, locked her deep into a dark cave, a subterranean chamber that some say was lined with impenetrable bronze. Literally a bronze bubble under the surface of the earth. In this first act of cruelty, we witness one of the many layers of oppression Danae suffers during her lifetime, where the powerful seek to suppress the potential in fear of newness or change. While Danae was trapped, Zeus was absolutely enamored with her. He thought she was the most gorgeous being on Earth, although it's starting to seem like he feels that way about a lot of girls. Some say he infiltrated the cave through beams of sunlight. Some say he showered golden rain inside the chamber. Either way, she somehow ended up pregnant. This moment between a captured woman and a god who infiltrated her prison against her will is just one example of an unhealthy power dynamic caused by oppression. Because who knows if she even wanted to conceive? Many women have felt threatened or pressured into situations by men in positions of power. Look at Harvey Weinstein and the Me Too movement. Most of the victims were only initially around him because they wanted jobs, money, or a lifestyle that they thought would bring them freedom in life. But instead, they were put into unthinkable, awful situations, and then blamed by the entire world before they were able to successfully prove the truth. Eventually, though, Danae had her baby son Perseus, and was beginning to see a light of hope in what she thought would be a long, dark future. She loved her son, but always had the fear of the prophecy in the back of her mind. Sadly, she didn't have long. As soon as her father caught wind of the news, he was reminded that he could lose his throne. So, he forced Danae and the infant into a wooden chest and set them adrift at sea. By some miracle, or perhaps even the work of gods, they arrive safely at the island of Seriphos, where a fisherman named Dictys offers them refuge in his home, and they're able to live, and she raises her baby in peace. But, as we've learned, history repeats itself, and Danae becomes involved with an extremely toxic man, King Polydectes. The king knows that by this point her adult son Perseus can see right through his facade. So in an effort to get rid of him, he sends the son to slay Medusa the Gorgon, and return with her head, a task otherwise proved impossible with many brave heroes before him being turned to stone in the hunt for Medusa. In a previous video of ours, you can hear that entire story, but all you need to know now is that he was successful. He eventually brings the head back, but instead of finding his mother and the king happily in love on the island, she had to flee. She was treated so poorly by the king that she had to run and seek refuge in the temple of Athena, the very temple that Medusa spent most of her life in. In anger and an effort to defend his mother, Perseus immediately hunted out King Polydectes and turned him into stone using the Gorgon's head. He was aware of the oppression she had been facing the entire time. It's a sad reality that has repeated itself in history time and time again. Today, if you look around, you'll see that systems of oppression are still all around us in the form of sexism, homophobia, ableism, classism, racism, anti-Semitism, and more. In the United States civil rights movement, influential figures like Martin Luther King Jr. or Rosa Parks actively challenged oppressive laws, practices, and social norms through peaceful protests, nonviolent resistance, and acts of civil disobedience. The Civil Rights Movement paved the way for landmark legislation such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which aimed to dismantle systemic racism and ensure equal rights and opportunities for all citizens. As Perseus' story unfolds, we see Perseus emerging as a beacon of hope and resistance against this oppression. His journey reflects the timeless struggle for freedom and justice against those who abuse their power. And while in real life it's not always so sweet, this story ends with Perseus and his mother Danae successfully managing to return to Argos to claim his grandfather's throne and the title of queen for his mother, just as the prophecy predicted. Nowadays, this tale should be used as a symbol of the future, an example of what can happen when the potential beats out the power and becomes a force of change. You just watched a Things of Legends video. If you enjoyed hearing the story of Perseus and how he stuck up for his mother despite everything, and learning about the ties the story has to oppression in our world today, hit the subscribe button and leave a like on this video. It will make sure you're recommended more from us on your feed in the future. See you next time with another tale.